So welcome to the Future Creatives Podcast, a podcast for a motivated community of creatives and impact investors that are purpose-driven. Now, we're revolutionizing the arts and culture using purpose and decentralized finance, DeFi, to fund creative projects and spaces that are owned and led by the audience and the artists and impact investors. Tune in for the news, views and interviews about how, 1, we're making it easier for creatives to fund their projects and increase their income. 2, we are revolutionizing the creative value chain. And 3, unlocking new opportunities for impact investors in the creative industries that were previously unavailable. So join us as we dive into the creative technologies, trends and talents that are reshaping the creative industries of tomorrow and how that is going to disrupt the way that arts and culture is funded, distributed and validated. And remember to like, subscribe and share, because there's more of us that want change that are out there. Welcome to the Future Creatives Podcast, episode 15. I'm your host, Kwesi Johnson, and today I'm talking about the contradiction that affects millions of artists worldwide. And it's this: the creative industries are booming, so why aren't the artists? The creative industries, music, film, visual arts and digital content, are generating billions of pounds globally. In fact, in the UK alone, the creative economy is worth 108 billion. That was in 2021. Another stat from Statista is that it generates $15 million an hour. Let that sink in. Yet despite this booming industry, many artists are still struggling to make a living. So how can an industry so large still leave so many of its creators in financial trouble? Because without the creators, there is no industry. There's no producers to produce the art. There's no audience to watch the art. There's no venues to host the art. The people that actually make this, the epicenter, the nucleus of the industry, are the worse off. I don't get it. So that's why I've decided to do this podcast, to hopefully open that conversation a little bit more about what it is that we can do as we move forward with the technology, with the global reach that we've got. It doesn't have to be the same as when it started out in the 1960s, which I'll cover a little bit later in the episode. So first, let's set the stage. The global creative industries are booming. We've got streaming platforms like Spotify and Netflix, and movies and major studios and record labels and venues that all contribute to a thriving creative economy. But as I said, the problem is that artists are getting left behind. Let's look at music, for example. Platforms like Spotify generate billions in revenue, and artists only see a fraction of that, 0.003 cents per click. It's ridiculous. So the revenue sharing model heavily favors the platforms and execs and the labels, leaving a lot of musicians earning less than a penny. The economics are skewed, and the traditional gatekeepers, they still hold the keys to who gets funded and who doesn't. Now, this centralized control severely limits the potential of many creatives to truly thrive. So why aren't the artists thriving? First thing, I'm just going to make clear that I'm going to zoom into the subsidized sector here, because there is other issues with the commercial sector, with contracts, with things that you have to, fulfill. But let's just look at the subsidized sector, because that's my background. That's why I'm really focusing in on, because I know there's a solution out there. That's what we're creating with Future Creatives. The main thing why they're not thriving is because they're relying on a system that wasn't built for today. It was created in the 1960s and it hasn't developed much since then. Think about the things that have developed since the 1960s and how much they've gone. Telephones, car design. There's so many things that have really jumped and really enhanced this use of technology and use of being able to speak to people and being able to look at consumers, what it is that they want in order to inform what it is that they do. These developments have really impacted how we do things. Like the digital revolution, the rise of digital technologies has revolutionized the way art is created and consumed. But the funding system I'm talking about, the subsidized sector, still hasn't caught up. So what we've got this democratization by going online and access to art, and it allows artists to reach global audiences and bypass traditional gatekeepers. This has led to loads of online platforms such as streaming services, digital marketplaces, and social media pages that offer new avenues to monetize their work and grow their audience. We've got this interconnectedness of the world. It's increased the cultural exchange and collaboration. Artists can now easily connect to peers from different cultures, from different parts of the world, sharing ideas and techniques. Now, this has led to a more diverse and globalized artistic landscape. And everyone can see culture from around the world, but it's not necessarily reflected in the live experiences that are available to them. That's to do with people's subjective opinion that is programming a space, or funding restrictions, that they can't be too ambitious or go off the track that they've said that they're going to program in the first place. Anyway, so it's created these opportunities for artists to generate revenue, but also, like I said, to network and get their work out there. So I believe that the system that we have will be catching up forever. And the reason I say that is because creatives are so creative. They're on it. They're looking at different ways of creating their art. But if you've got an institution, institutions move slow. So there'll forever be this thing of trying to catch up with the industry, with the artists and what is being created. And there's forever going to be this discombobulation of how we create the work and how it's funded. The second biggest part of this is also the traditional artist that's relying on those traditional processes. Now, there's a huge gap in how artists are educated and supported, and too often the artists are taught to prioritize the purity of their craft, which is fine, but they aren't shown how to think of themselves as entrepreneurs. Creative thinking is what drives an entrepreneur, and if you're a creative thinker, you're kind of halfway there, but it's just about redirecting it to be more entrepreneurial, to solve problems. So in today's world, that's the way forward of entrepreneurs, because as I've said, institutions move slow. Entrepreneurs and creatives are the things that drive economies. They're the things that make the change. It's essential. It's essential for our survival as a species to have that idea of creativity. Anyway, I digress. So for instance, some successful artists have diversified their income streams. They've started crowdfunding campaigns, membership groups on Patreon, for example, released NFTs, or have self-hosted and self-run exhibitions and shows, and all the while they keep their intellectual property intact. But for the majority, the path to sustainable earnings remains elusive. How? I don't know, because success leaves clues. That's why I'm doing this. This is why I'm sharing these ideas. This lack of entrepreneurial skills keeps many artists in the cycle of feast and famine. They rely on traditional funding or gatekeepers for a limited window of opportunity rather than being empowered to create their own path to success. That's why decentralization can change the game. And that's what we're focused on with the Future Creatives Incubator. For artists, it solves this problem by matching them with entrepreneurs and impact investors to help them amplify their ideas, and the impact investor to understand why thousands of brilliant ideas, creative ideas, are left out in the cold, because funding bodies brand them as not thought out enough, not developed enough. But there's no tips on how to address that. One of my refusals to a funding body was there wasn't a problem with it. There was just better ideas on the table on the day. So I resubmitted it exactly the same way because there was nothing wrong with it, right? And then they came back and said, there's not enough information about inclusion. Hold on a minute. I thought there was nothing wrong with it. Anyway, so I moved on. And those occurrences kind of really have driven me to start to create this idea of Future Creatives, to bring the power back to audiences and artists. One of the best things, and one of the, I suppose, infuriating things as well, is the project's too ambitious. I mean, how can we progress and move the industry forward without ambitious people? Now, it's a judgment based on somebody else's, obviously, idea of what the past record is and what it is that you've done before, rather than looking at the team you're going to assemble to address those things of the past and drive this thing forward. Imagine judging new business purely based on ambition and the past. Elon, the Beatles, and Van Gogh wouldn't have got a look in, let me tell you that. But they continued regardless. That's the really important thing, is not to take no for an answer, or too ambitious for an answer, or not thought out enough. Take it as an observation, use it, go somewhere else if you're not getting the joy. There's this saying where, go to where you're treated best. So this is how we believe blockchain and decentralized models can help. So what's the solution? How can we fix a system that's been broken for so long? I can tell you it's definitely not in reposting the problems on your social media and not following them with solutions. Sharing reports about how bad the industry is and asking for more money from the government. They're busy feeding hungry people and indirectly financing wars. Why should they save your local theatre or fund your 10-date rural touring show? There's genius in this industry. Let's redirect that genius to be able to lift ourselves out of this mess. So here's where blockchain and decentralized technology step in to help fix that mess. Blockchain technology allows for the creation of decentralized systems that bypass traditional gatekeepers. It opens a door for direct relationships between artists and their audience without the need for intermediaries. Let's take Future Creatives. What we're doing with this platform is designed to put control back into the hands of artists. Now, through blockchain, artists can tokenize their work, offering fractional ownership of their creations to fans and supporters. Now, this means the supporters can directly support an artist's work, whether it's a new album, a film, or even a physical space, which they're going to get benefit from, like a gallery or a venue. We actually encourage NFTs, but we're definitely thinking NFEs. Do you know what NFEs are? We call them non-fungible experiences. An experience that can't be changed, and an experience that can't be exchanged in the same way as an NFT cannot be changed. It's a one-kind thing. So an NFE, non-fungible experience, going to see a show, going to experience it, you carry that experience with you forever. That's what we're all about. This model with the blockchain is not just crowdfunding. Do not get it mixed up. It's ownership. It's where fans can buy tokens that represent a share in the project and they can receive a portion of income it generates. I mean, the artist gets funding up front, but they don't lose control of their work. And they also state the conditions of what rewards they want to offer to their fans and audiences. The artist can offer a reward, for example. They can offer a percentage on onward sales of the thing that they make. The artist makes their offer as attractive as possible, so the fan can also then request what would make them buy a token. So they're informing each other of what it is that each other needs. It's this really beautiful conversation with the audience to be able to shape the success of the project, which isn't just about financial success. It's about experiential, it's about creative, it's about all these things where you can have this conversation of what would make the best, the most beautiful experience for the artist and for the audience. Excuse the interruption, it's valuable though. I just wanted to let you know about the Future Creatives Mastermind Group. It's a community for artists, fans and impact investors that are fearless action takers who have a better vision for the future of the arts, culture and entertainment, and they just want to get stuff done, because we take the content we are talking about in the podcast and test and implement it. The link's in the bio or the description. Now let's get back to the podcast. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more onto the subsidized sector, because this is where the real problem exists. Yes, the commercial sector has its own thing with contracts, with giving loans to musicians when you sign a contract, and then you have to spend the rest of your 8 years singing what they tell you to do, go on tour what they want you to do to pay back the loan. That's how it works. It's slightly different in the subsidized industries, but it still has its problems. So one of the major flaws with the subsidized sector is that 70% of creative ideas never get funded. Now, those who are fortunate enough to receive funding often find themselves struggling once the funding dries up. So this means many important voices, especially underrepresented groups, get left out. So we see the intersection of NFTs and live performances that offers as a unique opportunity to enhance the fan experience and create new revenue streams for artists. By combining their digital assets and physical experiences to fans whilst also generating additional income. Let's look at some examples. So early access. Imagine you've got the NFT that can grant holders exclusive access to VIP experiences, rehearsals online, in immersive experiences using a 360 camera, so it feels like they're there. You can have meet and greets or behind the scenes content related to the performance. This creates a sense of exclusivity and loyalty among fans. Number 2, limited edition collectibles. Artists can create limited edition NFTs or NFEs, as we've been talking about, that commemorate specific performances or milestones in their careers. Now, these collectibles can be highly sought after by fans and collectors, driving up the value over time. Then we've got merchandise bundles. Again, NFTs, that you've got these things called NFCs, which are chip, validates that this is a genuine article. So you might do a t-shirt print with an NFC in it, and that has the value connected to the blockchain, where it is an original. And you can bundle physical merchandise such as concert tickets, merchandise, signed memorabilia, whatever it is that you as an artist wants to put into those bundles. They can increase the value of the physical items and incentivize fans to purchase both the NFTs, which gives them access to the physical product or experience. And you've got royalty streams. NFTs can be programmed to generate royalties for the artist each time the NFT is sold or traded on the secondary market. Let's say, for example, you've got a song, you put the song out there and you use a share protocol where your audience and your fans distribute your song. You as the artist obviously decide what percentage it is that you get, but then you're rewarding your fans and your audience for sending out and distributing your music. And because it's incentivized, yes, they might still copy the music. You're never going to stop digital copying, but guess what? As a loyal fan base, you're able to work with them to reward them for buying and consuming your music. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful kind of cycle of audience and artist kind of working together. It basically provides a continuous revenue stream for artists even after the initial sale of the NFT. Then we've got community building. NFTs can be used to create a sense of community among the fans. By providing exclusive access to forums, chat groups and other online communities, artists can foster a deeper connection with their audiences. But one thing I always say, this is not going to be walking apart for artists. You've got to build your audience. You've got to offer them something that's of value, not just be posting an odd thing online to be able to build that audience. It has to bring value behind the scenes. Talk about your story, talk about who you are, talk about what drives you, rather than just the end product. Come buy a ticket to my show. Don't work anymore. You can do that, but if we're talking about how you can be as a creative and survive while the industry is making billions and you as an artist is still broke, this is the way that you can get your way out of that cycle. So looking again, another thing is physical tokens. If we're moving towards this new creative economy, we have to decentralize ownership of ideas, of funding, where artists can finally take control of their career. And they no longer have to rely on industry insiders or funding bodies to validate their work. Instead, their audience becomes their greatest source of support financially and emotionally. So Future Creatives is a great example of how we're going to do this. By using decentralized audience-driven funding, it minimizes the risk for creators and allows them to create based on demand from their dedicated fans. Yes, they can still create stuff on a whim to see if their audience likes it, but there's also this thing of like they're supplying the demand. For example, artists from unrepresented backgrounds who have historically struggled to get noticed by traditional gatekeepers can now bypass them entirely. Their fans can directly invest in their work, empowering them to create the projects that resonate with the audiences rather than meeting the narrow standards set by the industry insiders. For us, we're entering an era where the barriers between artists and their audience are falling away. Thanks to decentralized platforms like Patreon, Future Creatives, artists can now take back control of their careers, build deeper connections with their fans, and create sustainable income streams to allow them to thrive, to make the work that they want to make. I know you might be thinking, oh, this is not all about money. It's not all about money, but as Les Brown says, money's right up there with oxygen. You can do without it for a bit, but you cannot do without it forever. At some point, you've got to look at the financial rewards of what it is that you're doing. And if you don't like the money, if it's really not about the money, earn it and give it away. I'll see how much you value money then when I ask you to give it away. And some people do. As we started at the beginning of this, the creative industries are booming. Why not the artist? Some of these things that we've been talking about, you can boom. And that's going to make the industry boom even more. So that brings us to the end. Thanks for tuning in to Future Creatives podcast. Now, if you're an artist, a fan, stay with us for more episodes exploring how we can build an equitable future for creativity. Keep creating, keep curious, keep it real. So thanks for joining us today on Future Creatives podcast. Now, if you're an artist or a supporter of the arts, now is the time to get involved and be part of the revolution. Together we can build a more equitable and dynamic future for the creative industry. That brings us to the end of this episode. Until next time, keep creating, keep supporting, stay positive, and stay active. If you want to make a difference, here's one small thing you can do that has a huge effect, and that's to share this episode with someone you think will benefit from listening. So join and share, because there's more of us that want change that are out there. Even small steps have a massive effect.